Hello everyone, I'm Vanish Signal. Before we get into tonight's footage, hit that like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. Story 1. Lobby Loop. The footage was flagged at 3:26 a.m. by the overnight monitor system. Motion detected in the lower lobby of Tower 1. No one was scheduled to be there. Cleaning crews had finished hours earlier, and the front doors had been triple locked from the inside. Still, the camera rolled. At first, it was just the flicker of overhead fluorescence. One bulb, stuttering in the far corner near the elevators. Then the motion picked up. A figure, barely visible at the edge of frame, entered the lobby from the east hallway. They moved strangely, dragging one leg behind them, arms stiff at their sides. The head remained down the entire time. Security Officer Keene was the first to respond. He rolled the footage back, assuming a glitch. But it was there, plain as day. The figure walked halfway across the lobby, paused at the elevator, and pressed the button. No sound, no sign-in, no badge access used. The elevator doors opened immediately, no delay. Too fast for a real call. Keene radioed upstairs, assuming a prank or system bug. But before he could finish speaking, the feed looped. Not rewound, not paused, looped. The figure walked into the lobby again, same flickering light, same pause, same elevator. But this time, Keene noticed something different. On the second playback, the figure turned its head slightly. Not much. Just enough for the overhead camera to catch a glimpse of the face. It was Keene, down to the scar above his left brow. Same security patch on the shoulder, same uniform he was wearing right then. He didn't report the incident. He pulled the footage, encrypted it on a thumb drive, and deleted the local copy. But he couldn't stop thinking about it. About how the feed kept playing that same sequence every night at 3:26 a.m. No other cameras triggered, no other motion detected, just that one loop. He tried disabling the camera. It turned itself back on. Tried staying in the lobby during the window. Nothing happened. But whenever he wasn't watching in real time, whenever he reviewed the recording after the fact, it was there. Him, dragging his leg, waiting for the elevator. The overnight desk clerk, Raymond, was the first to notice it. At 2:17 a.m., while reviewing the logs from earlier in the night, he glanced at the live lobby feed and froze. A man was standing just inside the revolving door, pale suit, briefcase in hand, back to the camera. Raymond leaned in. The feed timestamped the image in real time, but the figure wasn't moving. He wasn't visible on the playback either. Just a moment of static every time that part of the footage should have shown his arrival. Raymond buzzed the intercom, asking if the man needed assistance. No answer. He asked again. Still nothing. He reached for the phone to call security, but the second he turned his head, the feed blinked. The man was gone. Security swept the lobby within minutes. No sign of forced entry. No one matching the description on any floor. But Raymond swore he hadn't looked away for more than 3 seconds. Just enough to blink, just enough to check the clock. They reviewed the footage. No man, no static, nothing. But the audio? It had recorded something else. A soft scrape, like dress shoes pivoting on tile, and underneath it, almost inaudible, a breath. Not mechanical, not ambient. A breath with weight, presence, like someone exhaling just inches from the mic. The next night, it happened again. Same time, 2:17 a.m. This time, the figure faced the camera. The feed stayed active for 7 seconds before cutting to static. Raymond hit the emergency backup save, but the file wouldn't export. Every attempt gave the same error. FEEDALREADYARCHIVED. Except it hadn't been. not by anyone on staff. Not recently, not ever. Later that week, the building's IT administrator found an old server in the basement relay cage, powered, blinking, but unconnected to the network. Inside, buried beneath decades-old folders, were footage logs. Hundreds of them, all from Lobby Cam 3, all at 2:17 a.m., all of the same man. Same suit, same stillness, same static. Each file ended with a single frame. Each one showed the man facing the camera, and every time, his face was a little closer. Close enough to see the details. The wide, unblinking eyes. Too reflective. The lines of the mouth held in a slight, rigid smile. The creases on his pale suit untouched by time. His briefcase never shifted, never changed. The timestamps stretched back years. Different dates, same pose, same man. ET tried deleting the files. They came back. They wiped the drive. The server rewrote itself. They unplugged it completely, and it stayed on, drawing power from something internal or something else. Raymond stopped coming in after that. Left a voicemail, short, shaken, just one sentence. He's not trying to get in. He's trying to get out. No one replaced him. No one sits the desk anymore after 2 a.m. But the camera still runs. And every night at 2:17 a.m., it captures one more frame. By the time Hayes arrived back at the station, the footage from the rest of the building had already been scrubbed, cleaned, archived like nothing ever happened. The server logs showed the feed ending at 2:13 a.m. sharp, same as before. But when he pulled the raw files manually from the drive, something was different. The hallway cameras, ones that had always recorded in color, were now black and white, grainy, like they'd been pulled from a different decade. Worse than that was the loop. The same 6-second clip replaying silently on each file. Lobby doors opening with no one entering, the front desk monitor flickering, and the potted plant by the bench shuddering slightly, like something invisible had brushed past it. No sound, no movement beyond that, just endless repetition, over and over. Hayes timed it, 6 seconds, 17 frames, then restart. But when he isolated frame 12, he noticed something he hadn't before. There was a figure in the glass, only for one frame, blurred, misshapen, standing just outside the front doors, caught in the reflection of the interior lights. No detail, no face, but unmistakably there. He printed it out, enhanced it, pinned it to the incident board. That night, the station's backup generator kicked on by itself. No power outage, no trigger, just the diesel hum echoing through the halls. When Hayes went to investigate, he passed the security room. Its door was wide open. Inside, all the monitors had gone black, except one. The main lobby feed was back online, playing something new. This time, the doors didn't open. They closed, and the timestamp read 2:13 a.m. Tomorrow. Hayes shut the door and backed away slowly. Then he noticed the printout he'd left on the board, the enhanced frame. It had changed. Same figure, same blur. But this time, the reflection wasn't outside. It was inside the building, closer to the camera, closer to the desk, almost in frame. Hayes didn't sleep that night. He stayed by the exit with the lights on and the security panel disabled, key in the ignition, watching the doors. At 2:13 a.m., nothing happened. But at 2:14, the monitor lit up again. Just one word displayed across the screen. Looping. The tech team thought they'd fixed it. After a full system wipe, a firmware rollback, and a direct feed reroute, the lobby cam should have reset. For the first few hours, the screen stayed dark. No static, no signal. But at exactly 11:59 p.m., the monitor blinked back to life. Same grainy feed, same timestamp, same eerie silence. Except now, the figure had moved. Not by much, just a few inches, but enough to be unmistakable. He was closer to the front desk, still with his head lowered, still facing the same direction, still looping the same frame sequence. But in this version, his left hand rested on the counter. Nobody had touched the front desk that night. The cleaning log was empty. Night staff had clocked out early. The building silent, the halls still. And yet, when Marcus went downstairs to check in person, he found the desk had dust marks, 4 distinct finger streaks in the same position seen on the feed. Fresh, pressed clean into the surface, like someone had just been there. The elevators were locked by protocol after hours, sealed until morning roll call. But Marcus found one waiting at the ground floor, doors wide open. No call recorded, no floor registered, just open, lit from within, waiting. He didn't get in, just stood there, listening. Then he heard it, static, faint at first, then sharper. Not from the monitor upstairs, but from inside the elevator. It was the lobby feed audio, but glitched, distant, like it was being echoed through a bad speaker buried under concrete. A new frame popped on screen upstairs. The figure was gone. Just the lobby now. Empty. Lights dimmed. Then the elevator doors began to close, without a passenger. No sensor delay, no movement. Upstairs, the feed returned to the original loop. The figure was back at the door, but now his head was up, staring directly into the lens. Marcus unplugged the system that night, pulled the feed, terminated the power, and even filed a temporary shutdown of the building's security network. He couldn't explain why. Only that when the man looked at the camera, Marcus felt something cold slide behind his eyes, like the image knew he was watching, like it wanted him to. The next morning, the backup server booted itself and resumed recording. Same timestamp, same loop, same camera angle, and the figure was closer again. This time, his other hand rested on the desk, and his mouth was slightly open, as if about to speak. The maintenance request came through at 2:12 a.m., same as the last 2 nights. Same timestamp, same vague note. Visual distortion on camera 01. Only this time, the technician assigned was someone new. Romero, a third-shift contractor from a firm out of state. No prior involvement, clean background, the kind of name you bring in when you want to reset the board without raising questions. He keyed in through the West Annex, badge scan, timestamp confirmed. Walked directly to the monitoring booth. The logs showed no hesitation. The facility's central feeds, lobby cams, hallway intersections, elevator bays were all active, all stable, until he pulled up camera 01. At first glance, the loop looked identical to the file from the previous night. The same chair rotation, the same flickering overhead light, the same shadow pausing just outside the front door, motionless in frame 37. But then something new. Romero himself appeared in the footage. Not live, not reflected, recorded. Sitting in the lobby chair, wearing the same jacket, same key card clipped to his belt. Timestamp, 3 minutes ahead of real time. He paused the feed, rewound, played it again. Same thing. Him, waiting in the lobby, looking up at the ceiling and smiling. Romero left the booth at 2:15 a.m. The logs say he exited the building at 2:16. But the door sensor never triggered. The motion alarm on the exit hallway never activated. And the security feed for that wing, corrupted. Static wash from 2:13 to 2:17, then clean again. When the next shift came in, the booth was empty. The feed was still paused on camera 01. The frame showed Romero seated, head turned now, eyes staring straight into the lens. The timestamp had rolled forward to 2:19. Facilities did a sweep, no sign of him. His tools were missing. But his ID badge was on the lobby floor, placed dead center on the chair. The footage played once more, this time without prompting. The loop began again, chair turning, light flickering, and in frame 38, the shadow pressed against the glass began to knock. 3 slow taps, then silence, then static. The lobby remains under restricted access. Camera 01 is now marked as inactive. But every night since, at 2:13 a.m., it powers on by itself. Records 5 minutes, then shuts off. No one has yet reviewed the new files. Not since the chair turned by itself again. Not since the figure inside started waving. End of story, story 2. Storage row B7. The night shift supervisor at Whitmore Logistics almost never looked at the camera feeds. That was the software's job: automated motion detection, anomaly pings, heat zone tracking. If the system didn't sound an alert, then nothing was worth checking. Simple as that. But last Thursday, just before midnight, the system pushed through a motion alert. Location, storage row B7. 7 minutes later, it pinged again. Same spot. No accompanying audio, no visual trigger, just a silent spike in motion data. That row shouldn't have been active. Storage row B7 had been sealed since the 2009 fire. A structural blaze had blackened 6 units, melted the interior lighting conduit, and warped the steel framing. The rest of the warehouse had been rebuilt over the years, modernized, refitted, and brought online. But row B7? It had remained exactly as it was. Scorched, power dead, and marked in the system as condemned internal use only. No cameras, no keyed access, no foot traffic. And yet, the alert was real. Curious, the supervisor tapped into the archived surveillance feeds, ones that technically shouldn't even have existed. The feed was live. Static, but live. The supervisor leaned in, heart thudding slightly. The screen was grainy, low res, but something was wrong with the grain itself. It pulsed, like the pixels were trying to resolve an image they didn't want to show. A faint flicker passed through the footage, as if a distant bulb, long dead, was attempting to spark back to life. Then the feed shifted. The image bent for just a second, warped. A distortion moved across the center frame, a thick, dragging shadow that had no edge or mass. It didn't resemble a person or an animal. It was just darkness in motion, like something tall walking past a source of light that shouldn't be there. The system auto-flagged the clip as corrupted. Before it could be wiped, the supervisor froze the footage, magnified the frame, and enhanced the contrast. The timestamp, 23:53:44, and in the lower left corner, barely visible, there was a hand. Not blurred, not swinging, just resting flat against one of the scorched metal doors. The fingers were long, slightly curled, as if testing the surface. The system marked it as an unauthorized entry, but the proximity sensors hadn't triggered. No keycards had been swiped. No infrared response. Nothing had entered, at least according to every other system. A sweep team was sent in 20 minutes later. They found row B7 as it always was, dark, cold, locked, no visible disturbances. But when they scanned the area where the hand had been, their equipment registered warmth, residual body heat, where none should have existed. Just a faint trace, not recent, but not old either. And then, as they turned to leave, the feed from camera 3A blinked. Not the usual static flicker, a purposeful glitch. Timestamp match, same shadow, same angle, same hand. But now the hand was higher on the door and closer to the camera. The team pulled footage from all 6 units in row B7. They aligned the frames by timestamp. A pattern emerged. Camera after camera blinked at 23:53:44. Each one showed a flicker, A shift in grain, a ripple of shadow. One by one, unit by unit, something was passing through, walking the row. And it was headed directly toward the exit. The overnight team called it a glitch, a routine hiccup in the system. Motion sensors trip, lights flicker, cameras catch flecks of dust and shadow and pretend it's something more. That's what they said, over and over. But none of them are assigned to storage row B7 anymore. Every single one put in for reassignment within a week. At precisely 3:47 a.m., the corridor lights on row B7 snapped on. No motion trigger, no heat signature. The cameras, supposedly fixed with no pan capability, slowly adjusted their angles, tracking a movement no one saw. For exactly 2 minutes and 16 seconds, the feed repeated, not in fast forward, not in reverse. A perfect loop. Same frame, same audio hum, same blinking timestamp, over and over until, without warning, the loop shattered and the live feed resumed like nothing had happened. Maintenance flagged the glitch. I tried to explain it away, but even they admitted the timestamp never changed during the loop. And that shouldn't be possible. I went in that afternoon with DaCosta. Just a sweep. Standard procedure. Log the report, verify the space, check the inventory. We passed the stacked pallets of old copiers and the yellow chemical drums, rounded the corner into B7, and stopped. The air shifted. It felt wrong. The temperature dropped, maybe 5 degrees. The overhead fluorescents pulsed slowly, almost like they were breathing. I pulled my phone to check the time. 3:47 p.m., exactly 12 hours after the incident. Then we saw the camera. It moved, smooth, steady, mechanical. It followed our path down the aisle. It shouldn't have. These cameras don't have motors. We verified it later, 3 times. But there it was, tracking us, watching us. And just as we reached the end of the aisle, the footage froze. The timestamp blinked once, then jumped forward by exactly 2 minutes and 16 seconds. DaCosta turned fast, said he heard something shift behind the pallets, like something heavy being dragged. But when we checked, there was nothing. No footprints, no rats, no condensation, just the thick smell of plastic and dust. And one item that didn't belong. It wasn't on the manifest, wasn't in the inventory system. A cardboard box, old, warped at the corners, torn on one side. On top, a faded label written in thick black marker, returned. We brought it to the front desk, kept the security feed running, opened it slowly. Inside, packed tight with yellowing newsprint, were VHS tapes. Dozens of them, each marked with a row designation and a date. Most of the dates were still weeks away. One tape stood out. Row B7, date, tonight. Time, 3:47 a.m. It's still sealed. We haven't played it yet. But someone will. Someone always does. The following footage was taken at 2:14 a.m., according to the timestamp. Though the internal system showed no corresponding recording activity. The camera above Bay 4 blinked to life for a total of 12 seconds, then shut off again. What it captured was never logged, never stored in the usual archive folders. It was found only because an intern had forgotten to disable a screen recording tool during an earlier training session. That mistake may be the only reason we ever saw what happened. The image was dark, color washed in red from the malfunctioning emergency bulb near the back wall. At first, there was nothing in frame, just the half-lit corridor between 2 rows of storage units and the glint of a hanging chain swaying slightly, like it had just been touched. The silence on the audio track was complete. Even the hum of the fluorescent overheads was absent, which in itself was strange. Then, at the 7-second mark, something stepped into view. It didn't walk, it didn't crawl. It moved forward in sudden, almost stop-motion jolts. One instant, it was near the first unit. The next, it was 6 feet closer. No blur, no transition, just hard cuts like bad edits. The figure was thin, pale, featureless. No clothes, no face. Just smooth, porcelain skin that didn't reflect the red light, but seemed to drink it in. Even when it was close, the edges of its form looked faint, softened, like the camera was struggling to focus on it. And then it stopped, right in front of the camera. It stood there, motionless, for maybe a full second. Then, so quickly it was easy to miss, the thing's head tilted sideways, just a fraction, as if it was listening for something, as if it was trying to hear the person watching the footage. Then the video corrupted. Not glitched, corrupted. The screen tore diagonally. Static spilled across half the feed, and it went black. When playback resumed 3 seconds later, the corridor was empty. No figure, no sound. But the chain was no longer swaying. Maintenance was called the next morning. They reported no signs of forced entry, no tripped sensors, no failed locks. The unit near Bay 4 had been leased for over 12 years to a name that didn't appear in any national database. No address, no payment method. All transactions had been made in cash via Dropbox. The contents were worse. Inside, several crates of expired IV bags, 2 disassembled gurneys, and a metal cabinet that had been welded shut from the inside. When asked if they wanted us to open it, the building manager shook his head. He didn't ask us to investigate further. He just looked at the still image of that figure, muttered, "It moved again," and left the room. We tried to check the cameras near Bay 5 to track where the figure had gone. There are no cameras near Bay 5, by design. The footage from camera 14 finally loaded just after 3 a.m. The timestamp was off, showing a loop from 3 days prior. But the movements on screen didn't match the archived logs. This wasn't a playback. It was something new recorded over something old. The corridor was narrow and dust-laced, lined with dented steel units and cracked bulbs that stuttered with a dying pulse. Everything looked normal at first, until Unit B723 creaked open without anyone near it. No motion outside, no movement from the latch. Just the slow, deliberate swing of a door that hadn't been accessed in over a year. Inside the unit, nothing was stored. At least, nothing on record. But the camera zoomed slightly, a function it wasn't programmed to do, and focused on the back wall, where a panel of sheetrock had begun to peel at the edges. Then, from the shadow behind the tear, a hand emerged. Thin, colorless, long enough that the fingers bent twice before the knuckle. The hand didn't reach out. It waved. A response? A signal? As it withdrew, the camera's feed began to distort. Not the typical pixelation or glitch patterns, but full screen warping, horizontal bands pulling the picture in opposite directions. The image split for 1 frame, then 2. For the briefest second, it showed 2 versions of the corridor. One normal, one darkened with red emergency lights, and a figure standing in the far distance. The footage stabilized. The door to Unit B723 was now closed. A few seconds later, another camera, camera 11, registered motion. This one covered the security desk. No one was supposed to be on site. The feed showed an empty room at first. Then slowly, a reflection began to form in the polished monitor glass. It looked like someone standing behind the camera, but only visible in the reflection. They weren't breathing. That same hour, all badge access logs wiped themselves. Every file related to B723 was replaced with a blank entry titled Archive Merged. And in the backup audio track from the corridor mic, a voice whispered a single word before the feed went silent. Closer. We didn't know what it wanted, but we knew we'd opened the wrong door. The time code on the last surviving feed hit 3:17:44 when everything froze. Not just the video, not just the monitors, the room itself. The air turned to glass, lights stopped flickering, even the whir of the HVAC unit choked off like it had been held mid-breath. We watched as the figure on the screen, a pale outline standing motionless in the center of storage unit B7, began to move again. Except now, the camera wasn't following it. It was as if the image inside the frame had become its own camera, independent, shifting subtly, adjusting perspective without any external force. Then the feed zoomed in, on us, or rather, a perfect image of our control room, from the same angle we were watching, except no one was inside it. The figure stepped toward the screen. We backed away, instinctively, but then the walls of the control room pulsed, just once, like a heartbeat. The monitor screen went black. Then text appeared. Do not follow the copies. A tone played, low, harsh, just below hearing range, but enough to rattle our ribs. McCall clutched his head and dropped to his knees. We lost power entirely for 7 seconds. When it came back, every monitor displayed the same frozen image. Storage row B7, empty, perfectly lit, and untouched, as if nothing had ever happened. We sent in a team at sunrise, full hazmat. No one entered without permission. The lock on Unit B7 had been replaced with a welded plate. No seams, no padlock. Like the metal had been poured over and fused clean. Inside, nothing, just dust. A faint outline in the floor where something had stood for a long time. And a note. One sentence etched into the concrete with something sharp. The footage was never for you. We pulled all feeds, disconnected the row, shut down the cameras. None of it mattered. Every night since, our backup servers, air-gapped, cold-stored, still generate new video files labeled ROW_B7. They're dated a day ahead, time-stamped to footage that hasn't happened yet. Sometimes they show us, sometimes they show something else, but they always start with the same 2 seconds. A man standing in the dark, looking directly at the lens, smiling. End of story, story 3. Freight lift access footage begins at 2:11 a.m. Sharp. Camera 12, mounted above the east freight entrance of the Belcroft Metro Complex, clicks to life. No trigger, no motion alert, just activates like someone flipped it on manually. The rest of the system had already shut down at midnight as scheduled. Every hallway, every lot, every service stairwell. But not this one. At first, the feed is empty. A pale strip of loading dock, dumpsters against a concrete wall, a flickering security light casting long shadows across the shuttered gate. But 13 seconds in, something steps into frame. Not a person, not right away. It's a reflection first, a warped shape moving on the surface of the loading bay's cracked puddle. The source of the reflection doesn't enter for another 5 seconds. When it does, it walks with a limp, uncertain, like it's testing each step before trusting the next. It's wearing a uniform, Metro facility, but the name badge is blank. The figure stops directly beneath the camera, stares up, but its face is covered by what looks like tape. Layers of clear packing tape wrapped tightly over its head, crinkled and glinting under the security light. Through the distortion, the eyes are visible, wide, not blinking. Then it reaches up. The arm stretches farther than it should. The joint bends wrong, not broken, just incorrect. It touches the lens, not with malice, not with force. Just a gentle 2-finger tap, like it's checking something. The camera flickers. When the feed stabilizes, the figure is gone. No sign of it leaving, no motion trail, just an empty dock again. But now the gate is open, and inside, the light at the end of the freight corridor, camera 17's domain, flicks on. Only camera 12 was ever programmed to reactivate. The footage picked up again at 3:17 a.m. Frame skips, a soft mechanical whir. The freight lift doors had opened on their own. No one pressed the call button. No one was supposed to be in the building at all. Security Officer Lin watched it live from the control room, hands frozen over the radio. The lift interior lights stuttered once, then held steady. At first, it looked empty. Then, from the top right corner of the frame, something leaned in. Just a shape, pale, angular, its head tilted unnaturally, as if to examine the camera lens. The timestamp glitched when it appeared, just 1 second looped 3 times in a row. Lin rewound the feed, played it again, same movement, same figure, but this time it stayed in the lift. Didn't lean, didn't move. It just stood there, barely touching the edge of the camera's wide angle, unmoving for 5 minutes straight. Not a blink, not a twitch, like it was waiting. He switched to the lobby cam. No alarms, no entry logs, no footsteps. Just the open lift doors glowing softly under the flicker of aging fluorescence. He tried the intercom. Static. Then a single crackle, like a breath held too long and finally released. At 3:24 a.m., the figure stepped out, but the camera didn't catch its face. The moment it passed the frame's threshold, every monitor in the security room froze. White noise. Then each feed blinked to black, except one. Cam 4, basement access. It showed the lift again. Doors open, lights flickering, empty, still. But in the upper corner, a reflection in the brushed steel. Lin's face, watching from the control room. But he wasn't looking at the lift. He was looking directly into the camera. Lin blinked, heart pounding. He checked his own reflection in the monitor. It didn't move. Frozen like a photograph. He hit the emergency override. Lights across the building surged as the system rebooted. The feeds cut to black, then returned. The basement camera now showed an empty lift. Closed doors, no figure. But the call log had updated. The lift had stopped on a sub-level that didn't exist. Sub B2. And someone had used an access key. Lin never found the key card. But 2 hours later, the freight lift doors reopened. And a second Lin stepped out. Uniform perfect, radio silent. No hesitation in his stride. He walked straight past the lobby cam. Never looked up. And when the morning crew arrived, there was only one Lin on shift. Neither one remembered the night before. But a sticky note was taped to the freight lift control panel, written in Lin's handwriting. It said, "Do not send it back down." And no one could remember writing it. The footage from March 6th starts like the others. Static bursts, timestamp jitter, and the faint flicker of hallway lights reacting to the backup generator kicking in. But 5 seconds in, something deviates. The camera trained on the freight lift corridor stabilizes, its grainy feed unusually clear. What it captures next plays out uninterrupted for just over 3 unsettling minutes. A man stands at the far end of the corridor. His back is to the camera. He appears to be wearing a standard-issue custodial uniform, but the outfit is too clean, too perfect. No smudges, no creases, no evidence of ever being worn in a real shift. He begins to walk toward the lift. His gait is too measured, too fluid, like someone trying very hard to act human without fully understanding how. The moment he steps directly beneath the camera, the feed pulses. A brief but visible distortion, like the lens flinched. Then he stops. He doesn't turn toward the elevator. Instead, he turns to face the camera. His face remains indistinct, slightly out of focus despite the lens being clear. No recognition data hits, but one security analyst notes that his limbs seem just slightly off. Too long at the elbow, too compressed at the wrist. The head tilt that follows is unsettling. It rotates just a few degrees too far, unnatural but calculated, like a performance of human behavior learned secondhand. He lifts his hand to press the elevator button, but the doors slide open before he touches it. There's no one inside. He steps in, then he's gone. The doors close silently. No one recalls seeing him come out. Minutes pass, but the feed continues. And then, impossibly, the same man appears again, now walking in reverse, heading away from the lift, same steady stride. But the timestamp hasn't reset. It hasn't looped or rewound. There's no edit. It's the same continuous feed, replaying something that shouldn't have happened yet. On the third pass, another anomaly emerges. This time, as the man approaches the lift, the elevator door's reflective surface captures something else. A second figure. It's not synchronized with him. It's shaped like him. Just standing still in the reflection, observing. Its edges are blurred, its posture slack. But with each pass, it's closer. Closer to the camera, closer to being seen. The reflection never appears while the elevator is open, only when the doors are closed. Frame-by-frame review shows the entity stepping closer with each loop, moving independently of the man, approaching the camera while he walks backward through time. There's no corresponding audio, silence throughout. But the building's access logs contradict everything. According to the logs, no one badged in that night. No one accessed the elevator manually. Still, the lift made 11 floor stops between midnight and 4 a.m. Each stop was on an unoccupied level, except the last, sub-level 3, where all the cameras were disabled 5 years ago, where no one has reported being in years, and where the elevator doors opened without anyone ever getting out. The security office tried to pass it off as a glitch, some harmless loop in the system, nothing to worry about. But we knew that was a lie. At exactly 2:41 a.m., same as the night before, the feed from camera 6 glitched. 2 flickers, 1 half-second delay, and the freight lift doors opened. No call button pressed, no floor selected, and again, no one exited, not a soul. I pulled up the recording and set it on loop. Slowed it frame by frame. Every time the doors reached full extension, the timestamp hiccuped. A jitter, just long enough to mask something. The interior was pitch black, supposedly. The lift's overhead light had gone dead 2 days prior. But on frame 742, something shifted. A hunched figure, barely visible, crouched low in the far corner. Shoulders bone pale, slightly trembling. And then, eye shine, just for a blink. And it was gone. Gonzalez hadn't looked at a single monitor since Monday. She broke that streak to see this. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard like she wasn't sure they'd work. She replayed the feed. Brightness maxed. Frame paused. Her voice was low, not even for me. More like she needed to say it aloud to believe it. "Whatever's in that lift," she said, "it's corrupting the feed. It doesn't want to be seen, but it knows we're watching." We didn't wait for approval. There wouldn't be any. We armed up and took the freight corridor down to sub B3. We weren't talking. We didn't need to. It was in the air, this silent understanding that neither of us expected to return. The corridor felt wrong, colder than any HVAC malfunction. No mechanical whine, just silence, and breath fog, like we'd walked into a cave. The call button on the lift was dead. No power, no lights. But as soon as we stepped within a foot of the doors, they slid open. No sound, no protest, just open. Inside was worse. The light didn't flicker, it shivered. like it didn't want to stay on, but was being forced to. The overhead buzzed in pulses, casting the walls in smeared streaks. The metal paneling was scraped with marks, some deliberate, others frantic. Letters, maybe. Words in a language we didn't know. An old hand truck leaned in the corner, wheels rusted into place. And the air, it was wrong. Thick, wet. It tasted like copper. We started down, past sub B1, past sub B2, then slower. The lift whined, but it wasn't mechanical anymore. It was labored, like breath through plastic, rhythmic, alive. We hit sub B3. The car stopped, but the doors didn't open. Then everything went dark. No emergency lights, no hum, just complete black. For a second, I thought we were dead. Then my handheld lit up. No menu, no controls, just a live feed, camera 6. It showed the inside of the elevator. It showed us. Except we weren't moving. The footage showed us standing, perfectly still. Me and Gonzalez. Statues, no breath, no blink, just blank faces staring ahead. But I could feel my own heart racing. I was trembling. Gonzalez was whispering prayers. On the feed, we looked like we'd been dead for hours. And something else was in the frame. Right behind us. Closer than I thought physically possible. And then it tilted its head. The elevator was already descending when we got the alert. Motion detected. Freight lift 3, lower sublevels. Except no one had used their access card. No authorized entries. No scheduled maintenance. Just a blinking red light on the console and a silent shaft moving down into floors that technically didn't exist. I called it in. Dispatch stalled. Said they couldn't pull up the camera feed. It wasn't a glitch. There was no feed to pull from. Lift 3 wasn't tied to the main surveillance network anymore. Hadn't been for years. Someone pulled the line. But we still got motion triggers. Still had the logs. And the elevator still moved. We reached the sub-basement, pried open the doors. The car sat there, empty, but humming like something had just left it. A residue of heat in the air. Faint smell of dust and bleach. I stepped in first. The buttons had been scratched out. Every single floor name was replaced with deep gouges, like someone had taken a key and scrubbed out the metal. Reed found the hatch. Not the standard roof exit, the floor. A square panel beneath the emergency brake cover, sealed tight with bolts that didn't match any spec we had. It looked retrofitted, homemade, welded in with care. Someone had turned this lift into a two-way drop. We unlatched the safety locks and pulled it open. Below us was a shaft, no ladder, no cables. Just a straight, silent drop, lined with pipes and old conduit, all running downward into total dark. The heat intensified. The air smelled wrong, recycled too many times, like breathing inside someone else's breath. Then the radio buzzed, a voice. Ours. Both of us. Our own voices recorded and replayed, but slightly out of sync. Unit 4 approaching breach, it said. Descent authorized. File complete. Neither of us had said those words. But the timestamp matched our current location. Someone, or something, had recorded our voices and used them as confirmation. Reed hesitated. I went first. I dropped into the dark. There were lights. Faint, like emergency strobes hidden behind walls. The shaft narrowed into a maintenance crawl space, then opened into a chamber I'd never seen on any map. Concrete walls, standing water, racks of old servers still running on backup power, and cameras, hundreds of them, mounted to the ceiling, all pointed inward, toward the center, toward the chair. Someone had built a room specifically for recording a single person, no microphone, just video. I stepped closer. The chair was occupied. Looked like me, not exactly, but close. Skin pale, eyes closed, mouth slightly open like it was mid-sentence. The body didn't react, didn't move. But the moment I crossed the threshold, every camera turned. In unison, motors clicking, lenses adjusting. The lights dimmed. My radio crackled again. Footage received. Upload complete. Subject preserved. I backed out, climbed, didn't speak until I saw daylight. Reed pulled me out. His face told me he'd heard it too. We sealed the lift, filed the report as electrical failure. The logs were deleted, the console wiped. But some nights, just past 2 a.m., the motion alert blinks again. Lift 3 opens, and the footage plays, but only from inside the chair.